Hey, what's up? It's Nick Pagliochini. Welcome back to another In Conversation with Nick Pagliochini. Hopefully you've checked out part one of In Conversation with Epic Entertainment, because if you haven't, you really need to stop and go back to that, because it's 100% worth it to learn these two lovely individuals that you're either going to be hearing here very soon or maybe seeing right now, This Weekend with Nick.com or Nick Pagliochini or This Weekend with Nick on Instagram. So let me have you reintroduce yourselves. Steve, we'll start with you since you're holding the mic. If you would please introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what it is that you do with Epic Entertainment.
I am Steve Sheldon. I'm one of the managing partners and executive producers and doer of whatever needs to be done at Epic Entertainment Group.
And I'm Charity Hill. I'm his sidekick, and I'm also a managing partner and producer and assistant to all the people who work with us.
So to give those who may have not taken the time to pause this episode and go back to part one, both of you have really incredible backstories, and it is well worth being able to take that deep dive into who you are as people and where you came from. But in this episode, we're going to get a little bit more real and come up to the point where you met out, into your adulthood. And then let's talk really about Epic Entertainment, because as we will talk about, I even have a connection to your company and we didn't even realize it necessarily. So how is it that you met? And whoever wants to take the mic to start this out, this will be a little bit more back and forth as opposed to focus on one or the other. How'd you meet?
Well, we went to college at the same time, at the same college, didn't know each other at that point, had no idea. And we came to meet each other years later, 12, 13, 14 years later.
I feel like this is one of those things that they say about USC where we help our own. Because I think I applied for a job to work for Steve, and I'm sure there were millions of resumes, and I'm sure he saw USC and was like, well, she'll have an interview.
Did it happen that way?
No, she was the best person.
Most qualified.
And most qualified, and she was fun. And we had a great rapport the minute we met. And yeah, so the rest is history. We started working together at the Queen Mary. I was the director of events and entertainment, and she was the assistant director. And we kind of ran created really an event operations department that, we produced dozens and dozens of events every year, including Dark Harbor, which is part of our shared history. Mm-hmm. And so that's how we met.
And to those who may be tuning in from elsewhere around the country and may not be quite as historically knowledgeable, what is the Queen Mary?
The Queen Mary is a 1936 historic ocean liner, luxury ocean liner, once the fastest ship in the world. And she is now permanently docked in Long Beach, California. She's a hotel, an attraction, and is home to many, many, many events, including holiday events and Halloween events, which are some of the ones that we created and produced for about a decade.
Mm-hmm.
So when you originally met and were working together as director and assistant director, was that with the Queen Mary? Were you working with them as opposed to Epic Entertainment? Mm-hmm. So what did that look like before, when you were working for a different entity? What does that look like when you had a different set of overlords before becoming your own overlords? For both of you, having that kind of, pull back the curtain for me. And what is it like being the great and powerful Oz, but reporting to someone else, as opposed to being the great and powerful Oz yourself?
I think we were really lucky and in a really unique position. At the Queen, we were in the right place at the right time with the right people involved, because we were pretty much given no parameters, no restrictive parameters, other than you have to convince us that something is going to be successful eventually. It doesn't even have to win this year or next year. Create something that is going to have longevity and is going to be successful in the long term. It's going to drive traffic, is going to be, create that repetitive visitor and bring people, that new and repeat visitor to the ship.
And it's a branding task. The Queen Mary had an identity crisis because all of the people who knew what it was were, essentially dying. So it was, how do we bring that newest consumer, that newest ship aficionado to the ship? And how do we make the story relevant and immersive and exciting to that newest consumer? but on top of that, the ownership group, when we first got there, they were really driving revenue and driving notoriety and driving the brand. So we were there at this amazing time to be able to like dream up. I just remember like writing on like napkins and dreaming up stuff, and then we'd like just create it. And I think that's a rarity, and we were very blessed and fortunate to have like this huge canvas, this historic asset to be able to create these really cool experiences.
Yeah. So we had really carte blanche to do whatever we felt was the right thing, as long as, within reason, as long as we could convince the powers that be that this is why we're going in this direction and how we're going to make it win. And what we created was wildly successful and, created a huge revenue stream for the ship, huge attendance in terms of, the overall attendance on an annual basis for events. And all of a sudden everybody was, from a higher up perspective was going, oh gosh, wow, this wins. Okay, let's continue to listen to them and let them do even more. So we had a great time playing with other people's money.
Yeah, we did. I think with that though it was like we had our heads kind of buried in the sand because of how many events we were pulling off per season. But we didn't really, it wasn't until later that we somebody tapped us on the shoulder to be like, you have like notoriety with a couple of your brands, of course, being one of them being Dark Harbor. And it was like, oh, and people started calling us and contacting us to work. And we literally had no time. Like we couldn't do it. We were not just working full time. Steve and I were both pulling in 80-hour work weeks regularly. So it was like the idea of producing something else or outside of what we were doing in our normal jobs was just like out of possibility.
Yeah.
So since we've talked about Dark Harbor a few times, I do want to get to that because it is what I, through personal experience and many folks that are familiar with it, is really truly epic in and of itself, long before epic entertainment. But talk to me about some of the smaller, more nuanced activities, because I know that there's the canvas of the Gray Ghost or the Gray Lady or the Queen Mary, however you use the moniker from the 30s to now. And there's so much history there, but also, it's been a backdrop and used for Titanic and different films and different aspects. I had some parts in Pearl Harbor, the movie. So there's a lot to it. So as you said, you had an incredible canvas. Talk to me about some of the smaller events that you were able to do initially before we get to the biggies like Dark Harbor.
One of my favorites, which I feel like was passed off to me because I was a newbie, was Art Deco Festival. And that's where I feel like I honed in on that immersive storytelling and telling an old story again in a new way. Art Deco, the ship is the largest collection of Art Deco in the world. And all of these things, I had a great mentor, the president of Art Deco Society in Long Beach at the time. And I was like a sponge just trying to soak in all of this knowledge so I could try to do it justice, highlight the ship, but also bring in, usher in a new era of people who might be very interested in the era and the art and the culture. So to me, that was like one of my favorite events. And that's probably where most of my inspiration came from for all these speakeasies and things that we'll talk about later. But I got to sit with old vintage mixologists and watch them pair and go back to the Savoy cocktail book and create or recreate, these masterpieces when people were just started getting into craft cocktail making again. And so kind of tying that in and tying in the food, the beverage, the history of the ship, recreating old menus and the Starlight Lounge and things like that, I think is where really that's where my storytelling started taking flight there at the Queen itself, because it was like, oh, did you know this? And Steve's like, I did.
Steve, what about you?
I think it was a mix. There were some events that had been, done for years and years, 4th of July, New Year's Eve, the Scots Festival. So some of the events that we did it was a rebranding opportunity and reimagination of something that had existed for years. So we were able to really put our spin on it and recreate and build, take them to another level. And then there were the events that we created, like Valentine's Day, Ship Kicker, a concert series, Shoreline Jam, Fantasy, which is a magic festival. chill, which was holiday, Christmas. So it was kind of the exercise in creating, like, let's look at the annual calendar and go, when do we need to drive people to the ship and bring people here, and how are we best going to do it? And it was trying to get creative and bring people, create opportunities for people to interact with the ship and the history and really highlight those things, but do it in a way that was entertaining and engaging, and that people would want to be a part of making the ship relevant to a new generation.
Edutainment.
And that's great. And I think that's a big part of edutainment is schools that have been able to go through and experience it. And again, we use all the buzzwords and all the popular things of immersive and experiential. And I think we're going to get even deeper into that once we move into Epic Entertainment, the company itself. But let's talk about Dark Harbor, which originally had Shipwrecked, correct, was the precursor to Dark Harbor. And this is all a haunt event. So if you are a regular listener to KFI AM 640, Coast 103.5, anything you know Nick Pagliochini being born on Halloween is all things Halloween, including having been a monster both at Shipwrecked and at Dark Harbor. So Dark Harbor was your baby. Talk to me about that, because Dark Harbor, while Shipwrecked was incredible, Dark Harbor really was next level. And it's because, as you've already referenced, Charity specifically, the storytelling element there, and really having these unique immersive experiences within experiences, such as speakeasy bars hidden inside of mazes, and having to collect wooden coins and having cut passwords to get to there. Yeah, you guys, I'm a fan. I know the product. So yes, I do my homework. So talk to me about what that was like for you guys, especially coming to, it came to an end at some point. So talk to me about what that was like for you all the way through to that end point.
Yeah.
I think, I came to the Queen Mary in 2011 during like halfway through the season. That was my first season of Dark Harbor as an employee at the Queen Mary. And that was the second year since it had been rebranded as Dark Harbor. It had previously been Shipwrecked. The ship then acquired it completely, took it, from the partner, and then rebranded it Dark Harbor, reopened it. So we had from the time I got there and Charity joined in 2012 until we as Epic took over Dark Harbor. There were 3 or 4 or 5 years. We had kind of opportunity to rebrand and recreate and do introduce some new experiences. But when we took over, so 2017 was the first year that we, Epic, took over. Charity and I had left the Queen Mary as employees. We had started Epic Entertainment Group on our own, and we did so in a very transparent and open way, and with the blessing of the ownership group and the management company at the time, and said, look, you guys are going in this direction with your event program. We would love to continue to focus on growing and expanding your large scale events, Christmas and Dark Harbor and things of the like. And they bought into it. They said, you're right. You have proven yourselves. Let's go in that direction. And we said, but here's the catch. We want to do some kind of push the envelope a little bit. And we want your blessing to do it. And we want to do it with your money. So they bought into it. They supported it 100%. And we took it to a different level, I think, at that point.
I think part of that too, though, is that while we're under the Queen Mary's belt, we systematically learned each department, right? It was like, okay, we're going to take this over. I remember Steve was like, okay, you're now the executive producer of Dark Harbor. And I came in like him. It was like Dark Harbor had started like 4 days prior. No, it was like October 12th. So I was like halfway through the season as well. And I remember going out with a little radio and then being like, what the shit? Like, what? Thinking I would easily be able to do something like this and having no idea the nuance and detail that goes into it. There are so many events. It's like so many departments. It's like 8 different large departments. But you start with your one you know best, which is production. For me, I knew talent and stage entertainment and things like that. But once we started diving in, it was really about like, what's faltering? Well, this year, that's what we're focusing on. Sometimes without us wanting to. It was like the payroll. Okay, how do we get payroll down to a science? And it was like, all of a sudden, payroll crashed. And our team was up until 7 a.m. getting payroll out. Or one of my favorites is the beverage department. It was like, what can we do? And I had spent that 2016 year in line at Universal. And I'd been going there since, college, like 18 years old. So I knew what I was in for. I've always loved it. Same with Knots, all the things. But I remember standing in line that last year at Universal, and it was like 3 hours because we didn't buy any fast pass or whatever. And I was doing handstands up against a wall with my girlfriend. And I was like, what? In my 20s, like, what are we doing in this line? And then I was like calculating the amount of time you spend in a queue. And it was like, we got to change. We got to do something. Let's put stages and bars in every single line. So we expanded out that way, did stages and bars in every single line. And it was like, oh, there's something here. Does it need to be in every line? Probably not. So we kind of contracted that back. And then it was Kiss FM, I think, or I believe it was Kiss FM. They were doing a partnership with Universal in the haunted house. And all of a sudden there was a DJ broadcasting from inside that haunted house. And I was like, and no one was there. And he was doing it for, for the radio station. But I was like, this is a thing. I want to be immersed inside here dancing in this haunt. Let's take this home and expand it. And that's kind of what we were like, yeah, they spend 2 hours in line, 4 minutes in a maze. Let's expand their experience inside the maze by creating these bars and making them secret. And then all the tokens and all the things came after that. But I feel like we systematically had to go through like every department and learn it for us to become really good producers. And it usually was a department that we didn't feel comfortable with. It was like, I don't want anything to do with beverage. Cut to next year. You're in charge of beverage.
I think we've learned to never say from now on, I really don't want any part of this department or this area of an event, because I feel like the year later, we always end up taking over that, whatever that was that we said we didn't like.
Yeah.
That's just the way it goes. But I think also we learned the audience. Year after year, we would really listen to what people were saying. Dark Harbor in particular had a really dedicated following, still does.
It has a dedicated following, not just attending.
Yes.
The employees.
Yes.
The scare actors or the haunters that come every
Absolutely.
year. The people who have years stories built in outside of the incredible stories that you guys created.
And it wouldn't be what it is without them. Correct. Like, we could pretend that we could create some amazing haunt, but really it comes down to them. Yeah. So our job, and we always say we're assistants, is it's like, what do we need to do so that you can do you? Like, and I think that's how we always approach production, because it's the scare actors. I don't even like calling that. It's like our cast members, our family. Like when we go into the next season, we would bring a handful of characters in with the production team plus all the costume and the makeup and someone from every department, and really talk as a forum of like, what do we want to do next year? And we all collectively said, we don't ever want to do this if it's not going to be better than it was the year before. And so it was so great to have talent in, and they felt heard, and they knew things we didn't know. And it was like, how do we create this so the scare's easier on you, physically demanding? It's so physically demanding for them. And it was really like this collective effort. And so it really was like this special moment in time that just felt, I don't know, like magic.
But it was also, the audience was so engaged and they wanted to be even more engaged. So what we learned was that no matter how deep we took the story, there were people willing to go there with us. So it was like a challenge every year for us to go, how are we evolving the story of this character or this maze, this experience? How are we creating a deeper level that people can engage with? And there are those people that go to a haunt that are dragged kicking and screaming, didn't really want to go, and they go and they're there for the superficial experience, jump out and scare me, I'm going to have a drink and I'm going to leave. There are also the people that are going to go and they want to engage with every single they want to find every Easter egg that you leave. They want to engage with every single monster.
They come back day after day.
They come back day after day. We have people that would come 5, 6, 7 times. I've been able to get into that secret bar, and that's my mission tonight, is to go to that secret bar. Yeah. So with every experience that we introduced, that's what we found was people were just, the more you introduce, the more people want more. And that was our challenge. And they kept us on our toes every year, which was part of the
how
fun.
do you appease the masses while also appeasing the person that's been there for every year of it, every iteration? And you want to do both justice, where you can jump in for the first time and be like, that was really cool, and for the 12th time and be like, I loved it again. And that's not an easy place, I think, to live. We always felt like we had to like up the ante, up the bar. But we also were coming from, I felt like Dark Harbor was like the little engine that could, in a way, where it was like we live amongst these Goliath haunts, the ones who created it, you know, the whole industry. And how do we carve out our little subset there? We couldn't compete, you know, from a set perspective. We don't have the production value. We don't have the budgets. We don't have the marketing spend. We don't have any of that, but we have heart and creative talent where we can create something different. You know, when during a time when all of those venues, because they were such large brands, were veering away from alcohol, we were like, let's lean into alcohol. Like, we had to find that differentiator, that niche, you know, these little nuggets in this giant city to really carve our own way.
Even Halloween itself, you know, every haunt back in the day was no costume ever. Nobody can wear a costume other than our monsters are going to get, it's a security risk. It's an issue. And we noticed that Halloween was our least attended night every year. And we sat down at the beginning of one year and said, how do we flip this? How do we change it? Everybody on Halloween wants to be in costume. How do we do costumes? And it was like, nope, from multiple departments. And we sat down with each department and said, why, what are the no's and why, and what if we did, and what if we did, and what if we did? And we got everybody to a point, well, if you did all of those things, then maybe it would be okay, let's test it. And we flipped Halloween from being the least attended night to one of the highest attended nights of the season because we created a costume contest and we proved, and by the way, in the history of all the years that we did costumes, not one time did we have a security issue with people being in costume versus not. Yeah. So I think we just kind of thought outside of the box and flipped the traditional thought process on its head a little bit.
And I think that goes for most entertainment, right? Like pounding the pavement, you're always told no in entertainment. So no's were always like a challenge. It was like, okay, so that's going to be a yes. We just got to figure out like which yes that's going to be and what that looks like, while keeping everyone safe, everything, you know, in order and appeasing, checking all of the boxes. There's usually a way forward. And a lot of people aren't willing to go that distance. You know, they told us the same thing with bars and the breakage and drunk people and all of the things. But we were like, check, okay, we'll put that parameter in place. We'll do this. Okay, we'll only do this. And then throughput and all of these things have to marry together. And moreover than anything else, I think it's story driving. And that was what was always important to us. One thing we had that other people didn't was this beautiful asset, the only one of its kind left on Earth. And we could tell its story. And there were so many stories. So it's like we had content for years to come on the story. And I think that was also what set us apart, was every character had an arc. We were telling stories from the perspective of, you know, we would write their backstories. We knew what it was like to be a thespian. So we knew the depths that those characters would have to go to tell the story of the maze, to tell the next version of the maze. It was almost like a prequel or a sequel, or, you know, and we were really, I felt, we didn't have fancy IP to play with. So we had to create our own. And in some instances, that was better for us. We didn't have all these parameters on what that IP was. And we didn't have what the story already was. We could create it and recreate it and recreate it. And then therefore we created these mini icons and then didn't even realize sometimes what we had created and then just leaned into that. So,
and in the world of social media and knowing the chef and the
right.
captain and so many of those characters,
yeah,
all the way to now with the event not happening,
yeah,
and still having the popularity around those things was so unique and special. Now, obviously, not to completely, you know, pull the car over a little bit right now, but 2017 came and you have already referenced it, but that's when Epic Entertainment was born. So talk to me outside of all these incredible experiences that you had with the Queen Mary and then choosing to go out on your own. What else has happened? What does that look like? Because so many people here in 2024 are excited about things from the past, but they're also looking to the future. And you are at the, I don't know, we can use fancy words like precipice, but you are at that beginning part of this whole new generation of immersive. You have so much knowledge and so much experience and so much drive and so much passion for this event, as you've referenced, but you have that for other events, and you've had them that you worked on to this point. We had a pandemic that came and went, and now you're moving forward with it. What is it like going out on your own? Because you had an experience to kind of start it all out, but then you're Epic Entertainment. You are your own entity now. And so what is it like leaving the ship in the harbor and going elsewhere and doing different things?
I mean, I think it's so interesting because I was just having this conversation recently with Steve. I feel like I don't get to do all the fun that our team gets to do anymore, right? It's like I do love that we can create story and create events and then they happen. Like that's exciting. But I miss getting into the detailed nuance of how the production is going. And we have producers who have been with us since the Dark Harbor days and earlier, and they really get to play the way we used to play at the Queen. And now we're like, focused on budgets and sales and partnerships. But I would say what is great is that we get to forge this way together. Steve and I just told him yesterday, I think, how grateful I was for him. Like, we are lucky to have like this great partnership. We were able to work together for many years, a decade before we became business partners. So there were no surprises of who we were in our relationship. So that part's really cool. And we kind of get to write our own ticket. There's always pluses and minuses to small businesses. It's like, especially in entertainment during pandemic, then post-pandemic, and being a small business and being able as an entertainment entity to come out of that and still thrive, I think was a feat in itself. But I would say it's really fun to be able to answer the call of the bigger brands like Hershey and Crayola and be able to play in larger spaces and different sandboxes across the country. And that was something that we were longing to do, that people were calling us for, and we could never answer that call. So now we kind of get to do that and write our own story and future, and it's scary and exciting.
Yeah, I think it's getting to really focus on the things that we enjoy doing and spending time on. We don't get to spend as much time on the fun stuff as we used to, as Charity said, but really getting to pick and choose where we spend our time and what we say to partners and potential partners that we're working with is they often ask, who's the team we're going to be dealing with if we bring Epic in? And it's like, you're looking at them, you're dealing with us a lot because Charity and I are very involved in every project that we take on. We're very hands-on. And we really try to focus on the things that we know will be a good fit for our team, for our company, for our brand that we want to be a part of. And we know that's what we'll be passionate about and what's going to win for you as a client. So that's where we go. And for us,
it's like, I think that it's probably a blessing and a curse, right? We have this standard within what we want Epic to be perceived as and what product we churn out. And that's not always going to be in line with financially what we should be doing, But at the same time, we have dedicated our lives to our craft, and it has to be something we're passionate about, believe in, and that we can see a future with. It's very hard to sell something that you don't believe in. And a lot of people peddle that, but those are those experiences that you don't want to go back to. So we do spend a lot of time on our events, and our office is mainly on an airplane or in an airport lounge. But I think that is kind of what makes it special, like that secret sauce. While we might leave it to another producer, we very much have our hands in that on a daily basis still.
And I think that's a big part about you still are very much boots on the ground.
Yeah.
You have plenty of fake blood all over your hands from years past, but also something that we didn't get into, and it's not as important, but it is a part of the story, is you're both parents now. Mm-hmm. So you're creating those bigger events, not just for the incredible past that you had and where Epic started, but as you referenced with Crayola, which is an easy brand when you're talking about kids. What are things that you hope to be able to bring to the immersive space through Epic Entertainment? What are, sky's the limit, budget's the limit, you know, like there's no budget. Where do you want to take Epic? What are the things that you kind of, you know, pie in the sky for your kids or for whatever?
I mean, I think for me, it's continuing edutainment. You know, I look at this bright, doe-eyed deer of my child, and I look at the things that are on his iPad and the lack of production value and probably education in the entertainment he's watching. And I just think there's so much more. He has so many questions, and his attention span is like that. So how do we engage that consumer early on, educate him, make sure that he's going out into the world with the right things in entertainment and not necessarily the things that can lead you down other paths. And for me, it's that. It's answering that question for him, but also for me, multi-generational. And I used to not care about that. I mean, when you don't have a kid, you could care less. You know, when I look at some of the things that used to be in our haunts as a parent now, I'd be like, never.
Sure.
But I think the family unit has gone by the wayside, and I'd like to see that come back to the forefront of education and entertainment is how can we, in a multi-generational unit, go have a good time, but genuinely, I have a good time, grandma has a good time, and my child has a good time. And so, I don't know, I think family entertainment is something I find myself leaning into, but I'll tell you, Halloween, like and he's already a diehard Halloween person.
As he should.
Yeah, and that came from my mom, and they threw lavish Halloween parties, so that's not going anywhere. But I do like the idea of building entertainment for the whole family.
And I think we see it, you know, at events that we take our kids to now. We see opportunities all over the place. So like, oh gosh, that was a missed opportunity over here. They could have gone deeper here. That connection that I was describing earlier that people at Dark Harbor were looking for, that audience was looking for, that exists at all ages. It's not exclusive to the haunt goer. So filling that need, I think, and that creating those opportunities for deeper engagement, I think is where we hope to focus and would love to focus.
You know, socially, as you've learned, Steve and I come from diverse backgrounds, and we have our own unique story. And I think in today's day and age, there's a better way to tell a social diverse story. Like, I think there are immersive ways that can be educational where we can all learn and grow. And I'd like to see more of that as well. I don't think there has to be education that is, you know, there's a lot of tokens on television. And, you know, whether you're token a color, token a religion, token sexuality, whatever the case may be, I think that's a very trite offering. And I think we can go deeper. And I think there are ways to do it. And I don't think every envelope has to be pushed to tell a story. I don't think we need shock value to talk about race or, you know, or sexuality or make it like, oh, every 5 people, there's a gay person or a Black person. Like, that's not real either. So I think there's a social awareness that can happen in a more organic way through entertainment and education. And that's through also immersive storytelling.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we like to say to our team and amongst ourselves, we are creating the places where people are spending their discretionary time, their discretionary dollars, and creating memories and experiences for their families, especially around the holidays with our holiday events. It's like we have the opportunity to help families create core memories. You know, taking it to that next level can be putting in the extra work and taking the experience to the next level could be the difference between somebody walking through and never remembering that they were even here, or a 6-year-old kid remembering for the rest of their lives that they were here with their family and they created this memory. Mm-hmm. And I think that's even more poignant now that we're both parents, thinking about, gosh, what are they going to hold on to? What are they going to remember as they get older? And how can we make these experiences even more engaging and better?
And pushing the envelope. You know, it's like you can do rinse and repeats all day long in what we do, but at the end of the day, we're also going to be very bored. So we're always trying to stretch the capability of our team members and excite them again, and hear their voices and hear other people's voices, and then tie it in and loop it into new tech and all of those things. So I think a little bit of everything. People call us for the darndest things. And we're usually like, we don't yet do that, but maybe we will with you. And I think that's just another blessing that we have as being a small production company and being agile enough. We can make those decisions if it's the right move for our team and the right timing for them to kind of jump into a new space.
Because I think for me, getting to know the two of you as I have today and been very lucky and feel privileged to be able to walk into Epic Entertainment while you are a small business, you really have an epic future. And I think that also plays into, we just celebrated recently the 100 years of Walt Disney Animation, and where it is always that reference point to how Disneyland Park and Disneyland Resort came to be, and Walt Disney World and everything else. It all started at that family component where Walt was bored out of his mind, sitting on a park bench in Griffith Park here in Southern California while his daughters were on a merry-go-round. How better to have that opportunity to be able to connect with your children and not be bored out of your flippin' mind as well. And how much involvement there can be. So not to speak out of turn, because I'm sure everybody has an opinion, but the two of you do represent a 2024 version of what Walt Disney originally put forward with your backgrounds, with your experiences, with all the things that you've done. What would you say to Steve, what would you say to Chair? What would you tell them now? What wisdom or anything that you could tell them? Because remember, you're talking to a child. What would you share with them now of what the future would be? Where, what pearls of wisdom or things would you have given to your younger self? Doesn't have to be specific to immersive entertainment, but just in general, because you both have incredible backstories, as you can learn from part one of In Conversation with Epic Entertainment, but you've taken those individual life experiences and created this incredible partnership to really bring things forward, to it being an educational or edutainment idea, be it something as cool and amazing as Halloween, whatever the situation may be. Talk to me about somebody, because I know people are listening and watching this who want to get into the immersive space, who want to be able to have their voice heard, who want to see representation that they haven't seen. So talk to me, give some words to Stevie and to Chair about, what you would recommend to them, or, what the future might hold.
Gosh, I think just because you haven't done it or it hasn't been done doesn't mean that it can't be done or that you can't do it, I think is a big one for me. I think my experience working in radio and being a producer in radio, the thing that sticks out to me from that was realizing that every person in the world is literally just on the other side of a phone call. Like, you can literally connect in seconds to any person in the world. Imagine like the person that you think is the most disconnected from you, and you can literally be on the phone with them in 2 seconds if you have the right connections and you have the ability to get to them. And that's not that far off, Nothing is impossible. Just because you haven't done it doesn't mean you can't. Just because you don't know how to do it doesn't mean you can't learn how to do it. Just because you never imagined yourself doing something like that doesn't mean that you can't go in that direction if it makes sense. So I think kind of rolling with the punches, having confidence to jump into things that you're not necessarily super comfortable with, but are interested in and want to explore. I think that's where the magic lies.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. I think that for me, being a woman of color, and I think this would hold true in like any industry that I entered in, is that like never take no as an answer. If I had taken no as an answer, I wouldn't be anything. I think that no is a gut reaction to something that no one has thought of yet. And no is just the jumping off point. And if I could impart that on, my poor parents, no. But I think, no is not a barrier. It's just an invitation. If I was saying one thing to myself, but, as it pertains to being a woman and a woman of color, or a woman not of color, that I feel like in my path in business, the further up the ladder that I've climbed, the less there are of us. And I say no to that. I think that women are brilliant, and people of color are so much more than the boxes that they're put in. And I think that people just need to keep driving forward, because everybody needs someone to look up to in what they do. And if you don't see it, be that person for somebody else. So again, that just goes back to like never accept no.
I think that's it, because we come from a generation who we were told to be role models. We looked up to sports figures or actors or musicians. And we're now in a place where we realize that those people around us are the role models. Those people around us that we see and experience, be it at school, be it in a youth group, be it in, for some people, a church organization. But those are the cultural differences that stand out, and we can really lean into having had those unique experiences and backgrounds. Not to be too boastful, but I'm going to call you both Wizards of Oz of your own realm. And without giving away too much, what can we expect possibly? What are some little, pull back the curtain for me, or, the great and powerful Oz? What does the future of Epic Entertainment possibly look like here in the nearer than not future? Anything fun and exciting coming up without being, giving away too many secrets?
I mean, we are excited to be back at Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania, again for Halloween this year and for the next 3 years. We just signed a 3-year deal.
Congratulations, that's epic.
With Hershey Park, which is amazing. They're fantastic partners. We've really enjoyed being able to be a part of their Dark Nights event for the last couple of years. So we've got a lot going on there. We have some other haunt work in the works that we can't talk about yet, and a few other prospects that we can't talk about yet, but that will be really exciting. And we have Christmas, and
we have Aussie things on our mind for 2025. I think, kind of going back to what we said before, I think that anytime we start with a client, it usually is very holistic for us. And so what we really focus on, and I think sometimes we just happen into, is the expansion of that relationship into other realms and other possibilities and different holidays and things. And we work with some really great brands, and we're working behind the scenes on things we can't talk about that are expanding over the next couple of years. And I think that's exciting. And we have been very blessed that the phone rings for us often, and referral is very important to us. And usually if somebody is coming referred to us, that means they know our work, or someone has spoken highly enough about our work that they've made the phone call. And I think that is really, really great for us. I don't feel like, sadly, we can talk about
It's
some of the
okay,
things
and
in
that's
our
totally
future.
fine. I understand completely. We'll be definitely keeping an eye on Epic Entertainment. But what I do want to say is you've really given a lot of inspiration to those who might be doing a home haunt or doing an immersive experience themselves, and really leaning into that, not saying, not taking no for an answer. What if somebody wants to come and work with you here at Epic Entertainment? What if they have something that they want to bring? How would they go about that? What would you encourage them to approach you or someone else in the industry? How would you encourage them to go about that?
I mean, in my opinion, just go for it. I have people that write me on my LinkedIn page, on my social media pages, and DM me. And to be honest, that goes directly to me. And I have to believe, and I know there are a lot of people that you think that are not within reach that do read their own DMs and things. So to cut through the noise, if you're sending me your CV and your resume and your reel or all of those things, and on top of that, going through the proper channels of to our website at epicentertainment.com. And, if I see you in multiple places, we're talking about you behind the scenes. So I always give kudos to, people who are seeking out not just employment, but a change in what they're doing, or if they're just coming out of college and they want knowledge or information or, a mentorship. I think reaching out in multiple ways shows that you're excited, because there are a lot of people that want to be in storytelling and entertainment and edutainment and all of the above. So the more you can kind of make yourself known and really show that you're going above and beyond is the way to go. We never sleep. We work a lot. It sounds really glorious to do what we do, but I'm not sure it's so glamorous. But if you're willing to sign up for 60, 70 hours a week, give us a call.
Yeah. And I would say shoot your shot. Kind of the same thing. Go for it. If you have aspirations to get into whether it be this business or any other business, like shoot that shot. Don't let anything stop you, and don't be shy. Think outside of the box when you're reaching out. Do the multiple reaches, the multiple touches. We drink Kettle One. If you want to send a gift basket, that will really get our attention. And yeah.
And I would say more is more. It's not less is more in this industry. More is more. So, the more that you can pedal yourself, self-produce your own, reel or bio or website or all of the things, because to be a producer, you have to be good at, dangerous enough at many, many things. We're jacks of all trades. Some say masters of none, but we want to see that you have the ability, A, for follow through, B, that you can complete a project on your own, C, that you've got creativity. There are all of these boxes you can check by how you reach out to us. And so the most creative way wins often.
And I think that's the perfect way to wrap it up and have final words here. Anything else to share? I think you've imparted a lot of wisdom, generally speaking, from both Stevie and Chair all the way up to now. Truly. And I think that that's wonderful. So be sure to check out part 1 of In Conversation with Epic Entertainment. You can check that out this weekend with Nick.com, and also check out the link in bio at Nick Pagliochini and This Weekend with Nick. But how do we find you? Obviously, we've talked about LinkedIn. EpicEntertainment.com would be the best place for that, but give me more. How can we reach out to the two of you?
Our website is EpicEntertainmentGroup.com.
Sorry about that. So Epic Entertainment
And there is
Group.
another Epic.com, and that's going to be troublesome for you.
Understood. So I'll make sure in the show notes at thisweekendwithnick.com, we'll have the correct link for you there. But outside of EpicEntertainmentGroup.com, where else can we find you?
At the local bar?
Okay. Great. Kettle One, downtown LA. Can't give you the address. I'm on the inside of the
LinkedIn.
club.
We're both everywhere.
I'm on World with Charity. At most, that's my handle at most things, and we're not hard to find.
Yeah, I can see that. So, Steve, Charity, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. This has been an incredible conversation, and as always, we look forward to seeing you out and about this weekend.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks.